Hello and welcome to our series. Do you really think you are financially secure? We frequently confuse ourselves into believing that we are financially secure. Most people, especially high earners, have a nest egg which provides them confidence. However, this may not be sufficient to meet all of life's requirements. We will unpack specific needs and how to satisfy them in this series. I'm RJ Vasudha Deshpande, a financial services professional based in Cincinnati and Northern Kentucky region. Yet, I serve clients throughout the United States, and with me today, I have three experts in this field. Today, we are going to talk about retirement planning. In this episode, we will focus our discussion to help our audience understand obstacles on the road to retirement, understand and identify the gaps in their planning, and most importantly, understand how to navigate and plan on these roadblocks. So, let us start with introductions first. First, Shishir, let us start with you.
Sure. Hello, this is Shishir Rege. I'm a financial strategist with Anant Wealth Solutions. I specialize in tax diversified retirement planning and financial protection for families and small businesses. I'm physically located in Greater Cincinnati and Northern Kentucky area along with Vasudha, but I work across the United States just like Vasudha. Over to you, Bhavin.
Hi everyone, my name is Bhavin Shah. I'm a financial professional and I help families by educating them on financial stability in any market condition. Tax free retirement income, guaranteed lifetime income, and with estate planning needs. I'm located in our beautiful Northeast, but have clients and teams spanning all the way from Florida and to California. Over to you, Shams.
Hello, my name is Shams Pirbai. I've been in the financial industry for about 2 decades now. My focus being auto insurance and life insurance. I'm based in the great state of Texas, living with my wife and 2 kids in San Antonio. I love educating clients and families on how they can protect their today and tomorrow. Back to you, Vasudha.
Thank you all for your introduction. So, Shishir, let's start by defining what exactly is successful retirement. Can you paint the picture for our audience?
Sure, Vasudha. So, successful retirement means that a retiree has fulfilled their adult life responsibilities, except example, caring for and raising their kids, paid their debts, and is now spending time with their loved ones as they wish without worrying about expenses and money. Okay. Even if they are working to keep themselves occupied or to add value to others' lives. They could be traveling, spending more time with friends and family, or at the beach, for example. The main point is that they and their partners or spouses do not have to worry about money as long as they live. That's what we would call successful retirement. Thanks, Vasudha.
Wow, that's a nice picture. I'm looking forward to that retirement myself. Of course, this blissful retirement requires planning. So, Shams, would you please provide some insights for our listeners into what are the main parameters this retirement planning should address?
Sure, Vasudha. When it comes to retirement planning, there is usually one thing that bothers people the most, and that is, will they have enough money saved to live comfortably through their and their spouse's retirement? Retirement planning should typically include the following topics: when would one like to retire? How long would retirement be? How to determine how much money is required to retire comfortably? How to plan for taxation? How would inflation impact one's ex-nest? And then how would stock market downturn impact retirement? Also, will an impact on nest egg force them to come out of retirement? If so, how to plan and avoid that from happening? How does their health, their partner's health, or the health of their loved ones impact the retirement? If they want to leave a legacy, would they be able to leave a nice legacy for the next generation to improve their lifestyle? Along with these topics for retirement planning, decisions about one health and end of life decisions, including will and trust, are required. To know about these additional topics and will and trust, I would refer our listeners and viewers to check our second episode on estate planning. Back to you, Vasudha.
That is one overwhelming list, Shams. So, retirement planning is not as simple as one thinks. There are a lot of moving parts here. Well, I'm glad that listeners are not alone. We are here to educate on all these concepts. Bhavin, before we take a deeper dive into these questions, I would like to ask, when should people start retirement planning and for how long? In other words, what length of retirement should they plan for?
Thanks, Vasudha. As simple as they may sound, those are really important questions. So, unless you are a 21, 22-year-old, right, who's just finished college and it's your first day at work, planning for retirement should have started yesterday. We saw the example for time value of money in our last episode on financial stability and growth. We want to make sure we have more doubles of wealth to help improve our chance of success in retirement. So, when we ask our clients this question, at what age do you want to retire? The most common answer is when they are 65 years old. When you ask them how long do you expect to live, after some thought, in most cases, the answer is 85, 90 years old. So that means that they have to plan a minimum of 25 to 30 years of retirement. That's a quarter of a century, or even more, as statistically speaking, women live longer than men. Now, let us put this in perspective. Let us take an arbitrary scenario where someone starts working full time at age 25, starts going through life, right? That is, they start a family, they have a house, right? Kids, other things happen. Assuming that they're targeting the retirement age to be 65, that is 40 years of time frame during which they are working and fulfilling all their responsibilities. And while they're doing so, they plan a quarter of a century of retirement. That means a nest egg that they save up in those 40 years should last them a minimum of 25 years. So let me share some additional information. In January of 2023, an article in Washington Post stated that based on 2022 estimates by the United Nations, there are 593,000, nearly 600,000 people above the age of 100. And the estimate is that the number of centenarians, right, people above 100, will be 3.7 million by 2050. I'll repeat, 3.7 million by 2050. Yet another article from the World Economic Forum indicated that at the end of 2021, the United States had approximately 97,000 of these centenarians. So almost one-sixth of the total centenarians in the world are in this country. The point I'm trying to get to is that with continued improvements in medical science, life expectancy continues to grow. And as such, planning for those 25, 30 years of retirement may not be enough. And if one wants to retire early, say in their 50s, they need to plan for even longer retirement duration so they not end up having to unretire, especially in their 80s and 90s. I hope the example and data provided better perspective on planning early for the long haul. Back to you, Vasudha.
Thanks, Bhavin. You have answered when to start and for how long to plan for retirement. Let me ask Shishir on how can someone start retirement planning? Where to start retirement planning and is a particular amount, say $1 million, enough to retire successfully?
Sure, I would love to answer that, Vasudha. First, let's start with that $1 million question, right? That is, are $1 million good enough for retirement? Okay. When my clients have asked me that questions, I usually answer that question by asking them another question. And I highly recommend our audience to also give a good thought to this question. Okay. The question is, on your deathbed, would you feel sad or happy if you have lived a fulfilling retirement and yet left a good amount of legacy behind for your loved ones or for charity, for example, of your choice, right? And the answer to this question usually being that you would be happy, then why limit your retirement dream to a amount of 1 million or even $2 million, right? As Shams shared earlier, there are myriads of challenges in our golden years, and most of them stem from money, or rather, lack of money. So it would be ideal to plan for abundance, although I'm not talking billions, at least not today. The plan should have to evaluate multiple scenarios and set a good strategy for some of the more difficult scenarios, as this could lead to a positive outcome. Just to give an example, CNBC posted an article back in 2016 about a janitor in Vermont named Ronald Reed, who passed away at age of 92 and left behind $8 million of fortune. Most of his family was surprised, and most of that money went to his library and hospital. So what this story tells me is that it is possible to live happy life and still have something to pass on even on a modest income. Okay? So let us start with the simplest scenario, which is your expenses will be the same in retirement as they are today. Just as Bhavin shared, we will use 25 years as a minimum number of years to plan for the retirements. And one could retire in does not have health issues, for example. Right? You're right. I'm taking a slightly best case scenario to show how the retirement planning looks like. So, Vasudha, do you mind bringing up the slides for me real quick? So let's consider this scenario where there is a single earner and that has a monthly expenses of $4,500. That means annual spending of $54,000. This $54,000 is available after taxes, and let's assume he's in 22% tax bracket. So that means the annual income needs to be approximately $70,000 so that after paying the taxes, he could spend the $54,000. Okay, I'm sure the income might be more than that, but that's the minimum income that needs to be there. So let us assume the same 70,000 income needed for retirement, and we are obviously discounting any inflation. So let's consider there is no inflation, and let's consider his age today is 40. So he's 40 years old, $70,000 that he needs minimum in his retirement years. Okay, the couple would need that 70,000 coming every year for 25 years. Okay, simplest calculation, 70,000 coming in every year for 25 years, which means they would need 1.7 million in today's dollar to pay for the same amount of expenses that they are doing today in their retirement. Okay, this is of course considering 0% inflation, and they both live only for 25 years once they retire. Okay, those are the basic assumptions. Since no one knows how long they are going to live, if we keep 25 years as a duration for retirement and now add inflation to our example above, let's see what the income and nest egg numbers looks like. Okay. Now, according to the Forbes magazine, the Federal Reserve's goal is to keep inflation between 2 to 3%. Although inflation has been at an average of 3.69%, let's consider 3.6% between 1960 and 2021. In recent years, the inflation has gone rampant. And but let's keep the math simple. Let's consider 3.6% as an average inflation rate. So if I check out what that inflation, how that inflation would impact, let's consider that monthly expenses of 4,500, annualized expenses equals 54,000 as seen on the screen. So the before tax income needed is 70,000, like the previous version. Now, because there is a 3.6% annual inflation affecting that dollar amount, by applying the rule of 72, and I've given the calculation on the screen, so if anybody wants to note that down, at age of 65, this person would need 169,000, which would be equivalent to $70,000 pre-tax. Okay, extrapolating that at the age of 90, so I considered 89, that person would need $396,000 annually. That would be equivalent to $70,000 today. Okay, So if we consider that series of 3.6% increment every year from 169,000 to 396,000 for that 25 years, that amount comes out to be close to $6.6 million. Dollars. I would say $6.7 million. Dollars. So now just adding that one variable for inflation, that's the amount of nest egg that somebody has to bring up so that they could have that comfortable 25 years of retirement if they are happy with the current expenses. Back to you, Vasudha.
Thank you, Shishir. What a difference it makes by adding just inflation as a variable. We don't usually think about it. Shams, I want to continue this thought process that Shishir laid out. In the example Shishir shared, there are two things which I'm hoping you could clarify. Shishir mentioned the expenses staying in the same in retirement. Shouldn't retirement have reduced expenses? Also, Shishir mentioned that the nest egg of $6.7 million should be maintained in a conservative growth vehicle. But wouldn't people benefit more from investing this money?
Sure, Sudha. Let me offer some clarity about this misconception that people may have about retirement, and that is that their expenses would not be as high as while they are working, right? It is very likely in retirement we may not have the same expenses of raising our children, paying mortgage, and such, but those would get replaced by healthcare spending, spending money to go and spend time with families and friends, splurging on exotic vacations, cruises, and gifts for your children and grandchildren, to name a few. In short, the actual spending could be same or likely even more than it is today. Typically, we tend to spend more money on weekends, right? When we retire, every day is a weekend. Secondly, the reason Shishir stress on the conservative vehicle is because this is bare minimum need for this family. That pot of 6.7 million, if they're able to set that up by age 65, needs to last them at least for 25 years. And you're right. If you have that kind of nest egg, one would be attracted to invest and grow it even bigger. Although the question comes, where would they invest? In stocks, bonds, mutual funds, or even real estate? Now, while all of these vehicles do have great potential for returns, they also come with inherent risks as well. If the market tanks 30 to 35%, that means it will wipe out almost one third of your wealth, or nearly 2.2 million. And then, if this happens in the middle of your retirement, do you think you'll be able to enjoy the rest of your retirement? Would you not be able to call it a successful retirement, as I'm sure your projected returns would not allow it? Wouldn't you want to be certain in uncertain times? Back to you, Vasudha.
Thank you, Shams. So let me create a scenario working backwards to figure out monthly savings needed. For this family we have been using in our example, let us assume that by now at age 40, they have already saved up a good size nest egg of say $200,000. And now they need to have the nest egg grow to be $6.7 million by the time the earner reaches age 65. Let us assume their nest egg consistently earns 8% compound interest rate every year until retirement. He would still need to save an approximately $110,000 every year, which is almost $9,200 per month. This would be a Herculean task. What about Social Security? Wouldn't that help reduce this burden? Bhavin, can you shed some light? Most modest earners would not be able to put aside that kind of money every month for retirement.
Sure, Vasudha. And as I said earlier, right, you need to start planning yesterday for your retirement. So, for those wishful thinkers that think that there will be Social Security, let's see how much it can help. A lot of people think that Social Security income is not taxable, but the fact is that, as per Social Security Administration themselves, one could pay taxes on 50% or up to 80% of their Social Security benefits depending on the taxpayer's income and their filing status. Also, Social Security mentions that in today's dollars, the maximum Social Security income one could receive is about $3,279 per month, or about $39,348 per year. So usually Social Security has kept up with the inflation, right? It's called cost of living adjustment, or COLA for short. But because some portion of Social Security is not taxable, you may continue to be in the 22% tax bracket. So let's assume Social Security continues to make full payments, right? The COLA adjusted Social Security income could take care of most of the retirement income burden of this family, with a remainder of approximately $2.93 million as their responsibility. So instead of saving that $11,000, right, the earner will need to save approximately $59,000. So as you put, Vasudha, if you have $200,000 already saved up for retirement at the age of 40, you would still need to contribute 59,000 per year every year until the person retires, right? And your retirement provides about an 8% compounded annual return every year on that what you're saving. Social Security, excuse me, continues to make full payments till the end of the retirement, right? These are the assumptions that we are laying out. Some key risks to note: almost all retirement accounts are directly tied to the market, right? So you think stocks and everything else. So we encourage our clients to always err on this side of caution in the expected rate of return. What that means is, when working with our clients' retirement planning needs, we recommend not placing very high confidence on Social Security and to rather consider it as a bonus. One additional aspect we work with our clients is to bridge this gap is tax diversified planning. It is essential when we talk about retirement. Back to you, Vasudha.
Thank you, Bhavan. Adding Social Security helped, but it still shows a dire need for higher savings. And that savings amount is close to what this family spends annually pre taxes. So, this is the right time to bring up tax diversification. Shams, would you like to share your insights here on what tax diversification entails?
That's a great question, Vasudha. So, tax diversification is very crucial when planning for retirement. As Bhavan has already shared, Social Security income may be taxable if you have other income. Usually, people think that they are not earning anything in retirement, so that they would not have any tax liability. Well, we will get to that, but before that, let us start with three things that we need to understand about tax buckets. Number one is the tax now bucket. If you are investing after tax dollars in non qualified brokerage accounts, real estate, banks, CDs, savings, ETFs, index funds, and so on, we call this a tax now bucket, which means that every year the growth is taxed. This growth amount is generally in the form of interest, dividend, or capital gains, and for all intents and purposes is considered as income and it is taxed that way. This includes real estate income after subtracting cost. Second is tax deferred bucket. Now, this is where most people save for their retirement. This would be like 401ks, 403b plans. Business owners may also have like a SEP. Some people may also have an individual retirement account or IRAs. Certain annuities also fall into this category. Money goes into these accounts before taxes. That means taxes are deferred until withdrawal. There are penalties associated with early withdrawals before the age of 59 and a half. And withdrawals from these accounts or annuitization in case of annuity are considered as income and may impact your taxes on Social Security as well as it may impact your Medicare payments. Now, finally, the third one is the most interesting. It is called the tax advantage bucket. In this one, the money goes in after tax, just like the tax now bucket, but the growth on the principal is generally not taxed. Example of this would be like a Roth IRA account or certain municipal bonds, treasuries, and also life insurance policies with cash value. Another advantage these vehicles offer is that when you take out the money from these type of accounts, it is not considered as income and hence that does not cause Social Security to become taxable. Now, let us see the impact of taxes on your nest egg. Let's say this person in our example has $200,000 that he has in the tax now bucket, and it is in the 22% tax bracket. And on the other side, they put the same $200,000 equal before taxes. So about 256,000 in tax deferred bucket, where they will only pay taxes when they take out the money at age 60 or above. This person is currently 40 years old and the rate of growth is 8% in both buckets. Now, at the age of 60, the amount in the tax now has grown to almost 718,000, and the tax deferred is at almost 1.2 million. But when you withdraw the money, there would be a tax due of approximately 263,000. So reducing the overall money in hand to about 932,000, but it is still 213,000 more than the tax now bucket. Now, if we compare the same $200,000 investment in a tax advantage bucket, you will notice that the size of that account is equal to after tax amount from the tax deferred bucket, which is about 932,000. Now, it is completely tax free. Given our country's debt situation, it is very likely that the taxes would be higher, therefore leading this family into a higher tax bracket at the time of withdrawal. So let's assume that the new tax bracket is 30% at age 60. And so with the withdrawal from the tax deferred bucket would shrink by almost $100,000, while the tax advantage bucket will experience no change in value due to tax law changes. Now, of course, not everyone can contribute to Roth IRA, and certainly not all savings can be in a Roth account, as there are restrictions based on contributions and limits on your current income. To overcome this challenge and to be able to have a tax free income in retirement, I would refer our listeners to episode 3, in which we had discussed life insurance policies with cash value. Back to you, Vasudha.
Thank you, Shams. This was quite detailed and informative. Shishir, back to you for my next question. We saw the impact of inflation on how it erodes our wealth. We also learned about different tax buckets and impact of the choices of these buckets in the retirement wealth. In previous episodes, we also discussed time value of money and how wealth needs to have multiple levels. It may still be impossible for several people to prepare this humongous nest egg for successful retirement. So, if they cannot meet these savings goals or aggressive rates of returns, they have no chance of successfully retiring. Are there any other avenues to explore?
That is a very good question, Vasudha. Very good. So far, we talked about the common avenues that people use for their retirement planning, right? And only factored in inflation and taxes. I mean, the things may become even worse as we add the cost of healthcare and disability expenses, and there is an enormous impact of these factors affecting that retirement planning. Okay. The prior generations did not have the same concerns about retirement as they usually had something called pensions. It was a source of never ending income stream. Okay. Now, pensions are things of the past, unless you are a teacher or some union worker or government employee. Pensions are a rare thing, right? So, in other words, if the task of creating nest egg which can provide for your retirement is daunting, then create sources of income streams that you cannot outlive. Okay. Bhavin already hinted in his discussions, and we already discussed this in our previous episodes as well, of using the cash value permanent life insurance policies that can help you provide this tax-free retirement income if structured correctly. Okay. Right now, so far, what we have seen is one single bucket for our retirement nest egg. There can be multiple buckets. You can split it out for different income streams. Now, but there is another instrument that offers this guaranteed lifetime income and it is called an annuity. Like life insurance policies, annuities come in different forms and functions. They are not available as a mainstream tool because there is a considerable amount of effort that goes into designing these policies. There is a lot of bad press about these annuities, primarily because of the fact that not everyone knows how to structure annuities properly, along with factoring in tax consequences and more. But annuities are a great instrument if the power is harnessed properly. I typically use the analogy of fire. Used properly and with knowledge, fire can help cook food and provide comfortable living. But if someone does not know how to use the fire, it can burn down the house, right? So there are several moving parts to annuities as well. And there is no one shoe fits all approach. We all are here working to help our clients, bringing value to their money. We have experience in designing these policies properly to ensure that you and your family have the greatest chance of success with these instruments that offer you a continuous stream of income for as long as you and or your spouse lives. Okay. We plan to have another session that discusses annuities in more detail. So our listeners will have an overview of annuities and how they function. But before I end this answer, I want to also point out that any of your mainstream vehicles like 401k accounts or brokerages do not offer any guarantees against the loss of principal. Okay. In the cases of annuities, they are backed by the claims paying abilities of the insurance companies that offer these annuities. And some of these insurance companies have been around for more than a century. All these insurance companies are also regularly scrutinized by each of the state that they do business in, by the state governments to ensure their solvency. Hope that offers some clarity so we can create multiple streams of income or build a nest egg based on your situations. Back to you, Vasudha.
Oh, wow. Thank you to all three of you. That was a lot of great information. At least there is a light at the end of the tunnel. Thanks for sharing all this information and another wonderful session. We love to hear from our listeners. Please write to us at info@anand-wealth.com and we would be happy to respond as quickly as possible. All our episodes and contact information can also be found on Bharat FM's Facebook and YouTube channel. Stay tuned for our next exciting episode where we will discuss impact of disability on our wealth and how to address this roadblock. Until then, thank you to all our listeners. This is Ajay Vasudha signing out.
Thank you all.